The applause was thunderous, echoing off the oak-beamed ceilings of Avington Manor. The air was thick with the scent of 1,000 white orchids. I had paid for it all. My son, Thomas, beamed at his new wife, Isabella. She was radiant, a picture of bridal perfection, her laughter like silver bells. I stood near the service entrance, a shadow in a simple black dress, my heart a cold stone. This was the moment. I stepped forward. My heels clicked against the marble floor. Click. 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 The sound cut through the din. The string quartet faltered. The laughter died. Thomas saw me first. His smile vanished. Mom? What are you doing here? I thought you were in Bath. Isabella turned, her angelic face hardening. The transformation was instant. What are you doing here? She hissed, her voice no longer silver bells but the scrape of a knife. You were uninvited. Security! Every head in the room, 200 of our oldest friends, swiveled between us. I could feel the heat of their stare, the awful hum of a scandal. I offered a sweet, grandmotherly smile. I'm leaving, dear, I said softly, my voice carrying in the dead silence. I just couldn't bear to miss the reception. After all, I did pay for it. A gasp rippled through the crowd. But I seem to have made a mistake, I continued. This invitation was apparently for a Chloe Mitchell. My mistake. But since I am here, I'd like you to meet a special guest of mine. An old friend of yours, I believe. I nodded toward the doorway. A man stepped out of the shadows. He was tall, dressed in a rumpled suit. His eyes were burning with a cold fire, focused entirely on the bride. Chloe, he said. His voice was rough. Isabella, no, Chloe, made a sound I will never forget. It was a high-pitched squeak, like a dying animal. Her face turned a waxy, translucent white. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, a 10,000-pound heap of designer lace and deceit, onto the marble floor. Her bouquet scattered. My son, Thomas, just stared, frozen. The man beside me, Mark O'Reilly, looked down at her. She always was a bit dramatic, he muttered. You're probably wondering how a 68-year-old grandmother, more famous for her roses than her ruthlessness, just orchestrated this. Well, it's a story of motherly love, cold-blooded betrayal, and the exquisite, bitter taste of justice. It all began 6 months ago. My son, Thomas, brought home the most beautiful liar I had ever met. He had been so lost since his father, Arthur, had passed away 3 years prior. Thomas, my kind, trusting boy, had inherited his father's estate but none of his skepticism. He was a target. Her name is Isabella, he'd gushed. She's a pediatric nurse, Mum. An orphan, raised by nuns in Spain. She's had such a hard life, but she's just light. That first dinner, she was breathtaking. Wide, innocent eyes and a smile that could disarm a battalion. She listened to my old stories about Arthur with tears welling in her innocent eyes. She complimented my home, adored my cooking. It was a masterful performance. She was the perfect daughter-in-law. And I didn't trust her for a second. It was a prickle on my skin. A tiny, nagging voice that I silenced. You're just a lonely mother who can't let go. But something was off. Her stories were vague. She had no photos of her past. Thomas was in love. 6 weeks after they met, he proposed. She tearfully accepted. Then, the planning began. And the spending. Eleanor, she'd said, her hand on my arm. I have no family. You're like the mother I never had. And Thomas and I, we just want something simple. Her simple was a £20,000 booking fee for Avington Manor. Her simple was a £10,000 hand-beaded lace gown. I liquidated my late husband's bonds. I drained my retirement savings. I took out a second mortgage on my home. All to give them the dream wedding. The orchids, flown in from Ecuador, £8,000. The Michelin-starred caterer, £12,000. I paid for every single petal. 2 weeks before the wedding, she came to me with one last request. She was admiring my jewelry. Her eyes landed on my great-grandmother's sapphire necklace. "Oh, Eleanor," she breathed. "It's the most beautiful something blue I've ever seen." And I, like a fool, blinded by my son's happiness, unclasped it and handed it to her. "For you to wear, dear. Welcome to the family." She hugged me, her grip tight. It wasn't affection. It was triumph. The truth revealed itself by accident, 3 weeks before the wedding. I was dropping off a gift at Thomas's flat, a set of crystal flutes. I let myself in with my key, calling his name. No answer. I walked toward the kitchen, but then I heard her. Her voice was coming from the master bedroom, the door ajar. But it wasn't the voice I knew. Gone was the soft, sweet melody. This voice was harsh, flat, and cold as steel. "Marco, I told you not to call this number," she hissed. "Are you stupid?" I froze. My hand trembled. I pressed myself against the hallway wall. "No, the wedding is still on," she snapped. "Yes, I'll have access to his main accounts the moment we're married." "What do you mean, you want a bigger cut?" We agreed on 30%. My blood turned to ice. My lungs seized. Then she laughed. A low, guttural, and utterly cruel cackle. "Look, the old woman has already given us over 50 grand. She's mortgaged her house for it. She even gave me her bloody ancestral jewels. This mark is worth at least 200 grand. No, he suspects nothing. He's completely hooked. He's a pathetic, lovesick mama's boy. A mark. My son was a mark." The box of crystal slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the carpet with a dull thud. From the bedroom, the voice stopped. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice switching back to the sweet, innocent Isabella. "Thomas, darling?" I fled. I ran, stumbling, back to the front door, fumbled with the lock, and tumbled out into the hallway. As the lift doors slid shut, I saw the flat door open, and Isabella poked her head out, a look of confusion on her face. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. I made it to the building stairwell, where I collapsed onto the concrete steps and was violently sick. I don't know how long I sat in that stairwell. An hour? 2. I wept. I wept for my son's broken heart, for my late husband's money, for my own stupidity. Then, the grief receded. It drained away, leaving behind something I hadn't felt in years. Rage. A cold, pure, and utterly focused rage that settled into my bones like iron. The weeping stopped. My hands became perfectly still. A switch flipped. The grieving widow was gone. The doting mother was gone. The fool was gone. If Isabella, or whatever her name was, thought she could destroy my son, she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She had awakened a lioness. My first instinct was to call Thomas. But as I played the scene in my head, the cold, strategic part of my brain took over. He wouldn't believe me. "You've always been suspicious of her. You're just jealous." She had spent 6 months painting me as the overbearing, controlling mother. If I attacked her now, with no proof but my word, I would be the villain. He would choose her. She would use my accusation as the final excuse to cut me out of his life forever. No. I needed proof. Hard, unassailable, and public proof. I stood up from the concrete step. I drove straight home, to my study, and opened my laptop. My fingers, steady as a rock, typed, "Best private investigator in London." I scrolled past the cheating spouses specialists. I found a firm run by a woman. Ms. A. Davies. 20 years, MI5. Specializing in high-level financial fraud. I picked up the phone. Ms. Davies, I said, my voice as cold as my heart. My name is Eleanor Vance. I need to hire you. The next morning, I met Ms. Davies in a small, discreet cafe. She was a woman in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She wore a practical trench coat and scanned me as I sat. For 20 minutes, I told her everything. The story of Isabella. The orphanage. The phone call. The name Marco. I felt pathetic, my voice small. Ms. Davies did not interrupt. When I finished, I sat back, exhausted. Standard, she said. I blinked. I'm sorry? It's a standard romance con with a wedding payday exit, she said, her voice clipped. They're almost always professionals. She becomes his perfect fantasy. The orphan story is classic, it cuts off any need to meet a family. The money is just the ante. I felt a strange, cold relief. I wasn't going mad. The name Marco is our first thread, she said. She was arrogant. Sloppy. She's getting cocky. So you can find him? I can find her, Ms. Davies corrected. And him. But it will be expensive. I reached into my handbag and pulled out a bank check. It was for £10,000. The absolute last of my liquid savings. Find me everything. I don't just want to stop this. I want to destroy her. Ms. Davies looked at the check, then at my face. For the first time, her expression softened into a look of respect. A professional who's stupid enough to get sloppy thinks she's already won, Ms. Davies said, sliding the check into her pocket. These little monsters always forget one thing. What's that? They're not the only predators in the world. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I had to perform. I went to a final dress fitting with her. I stood there, smiling, telling her she looked like an angel while she pirouetted in the £10,000 gown I had paid for, the stolen sapphire necklace around her throat. I can't wait to be your daughter, Eleanor, she smiled at me. And I replied, my own smile feeling like a mask of cracking porcelain. The call came 2 weeks later. I was in my garden, pruning my roses. It was the only sane thing left. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Vance, the clipped voice said. I dropped my shears. Tell me. You'd better sit down. Isabella does not exist. Her real name is Chloe Mitchell. Born in Hackney, London. 34 years old. Go on. She has a rap sheet. Not here, but on the continent. Convicted of fraud in France in 2018. A police report in Spain, a widower in Marbella, 2020. She conned him out of €200,000. He was bankrupted. My head swam. So she's a professional. She's an expert. The pediatric nurse story is a new touch. Very clever. And Marco? I whispered. The man on the phone. Marco Riley. Also from London. He was her primary accomplice for 5 years. Her brother or her business partner. They were very successful. Were? She double-crossed him. The job in Spain. She took the full €200,000 and vanished, leaving him to take the fall. He's been hunting for her ever since. My mind was racing. The pieces clicked into place. A new, far more dangerous plan was forming. Hunting her, you say? Where is he now? We tracked him to Manchester. He's working construction, cash in hand. We have a mobile number for him. Mrs. Vance, what are you thinking? I'm thinking, Ms. Davies, that a man who has been hunting a woman for 2 years might be very interested to know where she is." There was a silence on the line. Then, Ms. Davies let out a single, dry chuckle. "Mrs. Vance, that is highly irregular. This entire situation is irregular. I need to set a trap, and I need a second bit of cheese." "He's not cheese, Mrs. Vance. He's a loaded gun." "Good," I said, looking at a perfect, blooming rose. I was never very good at traps. But I'm excellent at orchestrating an explosion. Ms. Davies sighed. "I'll text you the number. My work here is done." "And Eleanor? Good luck." I stared at the number on my phone screen. This was the line. Once I crossed it, I was no longer just a victim. I was a conspirator. I thought of Thomas's trusting face. I thought of the word mark. I thought of my sapphire necklace. I pressed call. It rang 4 times. A rough, wary voice answered. "Yeah?" The background was loud with machinery. "Is this Mark O'Reilly?" The line went quiet. "Who's asking?" "My name is Eleanor Vance. I believe you know a woman named Chloe Mitchell, though she is currently going by the name Isabella." The silence was so complete I thought he'd hung up. Then, his voice, low and dangerous. "Where is she?" "She's in the Cotswolds. In 10 days, she is marrying my son." I heard him exhale, a sharp, bitter sound. "So, she's at it again. A wedding. She's moving up." "Yes, with £50,000 of my money. She plans to clear out my son's accounts, which she estimates are worth £200,000. 200. He swore, a low, vicious string of curses. "That snake. She stole 20 grand from me." "I know." Ms. Davies was very thorough. "You hired a PI?" He laughed, a humorless bark. Well. You're not just some dumb old lady, are you?" "I am the dumb old lady she's banking on, Mr. Riley. And I have a proposition for you. She stole your money. She is stealing my son's future. How would you like to be my guest of honor at her wedding?" He was quiet for a long time. "What kind of game are you playing, Eleanor?" "The kind where she loses." Publicly, I said, the coldness in my words. "I want her exposed. In the middle of her greatest triumph. I want her to lose everything, right at the moment she thinks she's won. And I thought, perhaps, you'd like to be the one to hand her the bill." He was quiet again. "She ruined my life," he finally said. "Then this is your chance, Mr. Riley. Justice. And revenge." "I'll be there," he said, his voice now as cold as mine. "Just tell me when and where." "And Eleanor? Don't you dare double-cross me." "Mr. Riley," I said, "I am a 68-year-old grandmother. I'm just a mother. And I'm going to get my son back." We spoke for another 30 minutes. The plan was set. The next phase was the most painful. 3 days later, Isabella and Thomas came to my house. She had been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Mom," Thomas started, his voice strained. Isabella stepped forward, taking my hands. "Eleanor, I love you so much. You've been like a mother to me. Here it comes. But I'm just so stressed," she whimpered. "The wedding, the pressure, and sometimes, your energy, it's just a little intense. I need some space to breathe. Just for the day." "What she's trying to say," Thomas broke in, "is, we think it might be best if you didn't come to the wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow. Even expecting it, to hear my own son uninvite me, it took all my will not to collapse. I had to perform. I let my face crumple. "Oh, Thomas," I whispered, my voice breaking. I don't understand." "You see, Thomas?" Isabella snapped, her mask slipping. She quickly recovered, bursting into fresh sobs. "You see how she's making me feel?" "Mom, please," Thomas begged. "Just, for her. For me." I took a shaky breath. "No," I said softly. "No, you're right. This is your day. I've been overbearing." "Of course, darling. Whatever you need." The look of pure relief on my son's face was a second, sharper knife. But it was also my cover. "Thank you, Mum," he said, hugging me. "I knew you'd understand." As they left, Isabella gave me one last, triumphant look. She thought she had won. She had just armed me. The next day, I made my calls. First, to the event manager at Abington Manor. "Hello, Mrs. Gable, this is Eleanor Vance," I said, my voice breathless with fake joy. "I have wonderful news. Isabella has just reconciled with her long-lost family in Switzerland. They're flying in and have insisted on taking over all the final payments." "Oh, how lovely!" Mrs. Gable gushed. I gave her the burner phone number. "They'll be in touch to settle the £20,000 balance." I made the same call to the florist. "The £8,000 for the orchids?" "Her uncle is handling it." The same call to the caterer. "The £12,000 for the lobster?" "Her family is wiring it." My masterpiece was my final call to Thomas. "Mum," he said, I feel awful." "Oh, sweetheart, don't be," I said breezily. "In fact, I've decided to take a little spa weekend for myself. In Bath. I'm going to get a massage and give you 2 year space. No family drama. I just want you to be happy." The relief in his voice was profound. "Thank you, Mama. That's really considerate." I hung up. The trap was set. Every vendor was now expecting payment from a phantom family. And I, the uninvited, heartbroken mother, was safely in Bath, with a perfect alibi. The Saturday of the wedding was beautiful. A perfect day for a disaster. I did not go to Bath. I waited in my garden. At 11 a.m., my phone began its orchestra of chaos. The florist. Voicemail. "Mrs. Vance? We're trying to reach the bride's family. The number you gave us isn't working." 11:15 a.m. The caterer. "Mrs. Vance, we have 2 vans of lobster here. The manor won't let us unload. They say they haven't been paid either. What is going on?" 11:30 a.m. Mrs. Gable, the event manager, her voice no longer lovely. "Mrs. Vance, I have a bride in tears and 3 vendors threatening to leave. The final £20,000 has not been paid. If we don't receive payment in 30 minutes, I am locking the doors." At 12 p.m., Thomas called, his voice high with panic. "Mom! It's a disaster. The vendors are all demanding money. The venue is threatening to lock us out. Isabella she's a wreck, she says. Mom, she thinks you did this to sabotage her." I gasped, a performance of profound, wounded shock. "Thomas! How could you? I am in Bath. How could I possibly do this? This must be a terrible misunderstanding." "But, what do I do?" he wailed. "I'm sure Isabella can call her family?" I offered. "She doesn't have a family, Mum." "God. I'll just pay them. I have to go." He hung up. I smiled. Check. He was now paying for the wedding, twice. At 1:30 p.m., I arrived at Avington Manor. I wore a simple black dress and a hat with a small veil. I slipped in through a garden entrance, unnoticed. I texted Marco, who was waiting. "It's time." I found my spot, a marble pillar at the back of the chapel, hidden, but with a perfect view. At 2 p.m., the music began. My son, Thomas, stood at the altar, pale but trying to smile. Then the doors opened. And there she was. Isabella, gliding down the aisle. She was a vision. And around her throat, glittering, was my great-grandmother's sapphire necklace. She looked like an angel. I watched her reach the altar. I watched her take my son's hands. I saw the look of pure triumph on her face. I stepped out from behind the pillar. My heels clicked. "Stop," I said. "Stop this wedding." The organist crashed onto the keys. The music died. Every head snapped towards me. "Mom?" Thomas's voice was a whisper of confusion. Isabella turned, her face a snarl of pure hatred. "What are you doing here?" she shrieked. "You were uninvited. Get her out." "I'm leaving, dear," I said, walking slowly down the aisle. The guests parted for me like the Red Sea. I just couldn't bear to miss the reception. After all, I did pay for it. A horrified gasp rippled through the pews. "And I seem to have made a mistake," I continued. "I thought this was the wedding of Thomas Vance and Isabella. Well, that's the problem. But I have a guest who knows your name." I nodded to the doors. They opened. Marco Riley walked in. He stalked down the aisle, his eyes locked on the bride. The blood drained from Isabella's face. She knew. The game was over. "Chloe," Marco said, his voice booming. "You look well. That's a nicer dress than the one you wore when you scammed that widower in Spain." Thomas stumbled back. Who is this?" "Isabella?" "What's Chloe?" "He's lying," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "I've never seen him. He's a stalker. Thomas, darling, help me." "Am I?" Marco smiled, pulling a stack of photos from his pocket. He threw them at her feet. "Then why do I have pictures of us in Berlin? And here in Madrid? And here," he tapped one, "is the police report I filed when you stole 20,000 euros from me, partner." Thomas looked at the photos. You told me you'd never left the country," he whispered. "And you believed her," I said, stepping up to the altar. "You believed her when she said she was a nurse. You believed her when she said she was an orphan. And you believed her, my son, when she told you I was the problem." "She is the problem." Chloe suddenly screamed, her accent gone, her voice a raw snarl. She pointed a trembling finger at me. "She's a jealous, controlling old witch. She hired this man to ruin our life. It was a good performance." I saw Thomas hesitate, his eyes flickering to me. "She's right," Marco said. "She is a jealous old witch." My heart stopped. "But she's also a very smart one," he continued, pulling out his phone. "She's not the one who called you a pathetic, lovesick mama's boy, was she, Chloe?" "No, that was you," and he pressed play. And in the silent chapel, Chloe's own voice filled the air. Cold, harsh, and cruel. "The old woman has already given us over 50 grand. This Mark is worth at least 200 grand. He's a pathetic, lovesick mama's boy." Thomas flinched. He stared at her, and for the first time, he truly saw her. The audio continued. "She even gave me her bloody ancestral jewels. I'll probably hawk the necklace as soon as we land in Dubai." Instinctively, Thomas's eyes went to the glittering sapphire at her throat. My great-grandmother's necklace. That was the moment. The necklace, Thomas whispered, his voice cracking. Give it back. You'll have to take it from me, she spat, backing away. That won't be necessary, said a new voice. 2 police officers were walking down the aisle. Ms. Davies, of course, had been perfectly on time. Chloe Mitchell, the officer said. You're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud and warrants outstanding in Spain and France. As the officer took her arm, Chloe lunged at Thomas. You weak, stupid boy. Thomas didn't flinch. He just looked at her with dead, empty eyes. The officer cuffed her. As they did, I stepped forward. She glared at me with pure, murderous hatred. You, she hissed. You did this. I simply smiled, reached up, and calmly unclasped my great-grandmother's necklace from her neck. Yes, dear, I said. I did. She was still screaming as they dragged her down the aisle, past 200 stunned guests, all filming on their phones. You'll regret this, you old bitch. The great oak doors thudded shut. Silence. Finally, Thomas turned to the crowd. He took a deep, shuddering breath. Well, he said, his voice shaking. This is awkward. A few nervous titters went through the crowd. The wedding is, obviously, cancelled. But, he looked around, the reception is all paid for. Twice, apparently. This time, the laughter was real. So, Thomas continued, if anyone would like to stay for dinner in a very, very open bar, you are more than welcome. God knows I need a drink. He stepped down from the altar. He walked straight to me. He stood there for a long moment, his eyes a storm of shame, relief, and devastation. Mom, he said, his voice raw. I'm here, Thomas, I said. He didn't say anything else. He just collapsed into my arms, his body shaking, and I held my son. Justice had been served. The trap had closed. And the lioness, at long last, could rest. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Thank you.